Stacey Abrams applying pressure. Now, there's new reporting out. I first saw this from Judd Legum, who produces the what's the name of his Substack or his
Popular Info.
Popular Info. Folks should subscribe to that. Or at the
It's
very
very
least, check
good.
it out.
Yeah.
But I just happened to catch this on Twitter, where he had said that the Georgia legislature is running into roadblocks in some of the voting restrictions that they want to apply in terms of like cutting down on absentee voting, and all of them seem to be hitting some roadblocks, and largely because there's been a tremendous and coordinated and big reaction to what they've been trying to do in terms of voting restrictions. And Georgia has, because of the work of not just Stacey Abrams and other grassroots organizations, but all of them together in many respects, they have a vibrant grassroots political organizing that's going on the ground there. And it is creating pushback, and it's influencing things like even the business community is like, oh, we don't want to do this. I mean, do you remember, like, there was, there have been at times in Georgia, like, like boycotts and stuff like this. And all of this stuff, like, sort of starts to create a critical mass. And so when Stacey Abrams comes out and says this is a big deal, I think. She was on with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, and she's coming out pushing for not necessarily broad filibuster reform, but saying that you need to make an exception. You need to figure it out in some way for these voting rights bill.
With the issue of H.R. 1, the House has passed this bill. The reality is it's not going to overcome the Senate filibuster. So I guess my question for you is, do you think it's that Democrats should pare down H.R. 1, focus it on all things voting rights and voter access? Or is it the focus should be on eliminating the filibuster?
I think the focus should be on protecting our democracy. We know that January 6th was the opening salvo in an attempt to roll us back to Jim Crow era. We are watching 7 times the number of bills permeating across state legislatures than occurred in 2020 during election year. And we know that the U.S. Senate, much like the U.S. House, has the sole responsibility under the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution to regulate the time, place, and manner of elections. That is something that we have to accomplish. It would be best if it was done in concert with Republicans, as we have in times past when we had to confront our demons and do better by our people. And my deep hope is that we can get it done. But I would say that an exemption to the filibuster for the purposes of protecting our democracy is not only logical, it is fundamental to who we are.
That's a great way of framing it. It's not a question of getting rid of the filibuster. It's a question of protecting our democracy. And I suspect the solution that is going to be just as easy, it seems to me, to figure out a reform of the filibuster. Because, we know that the Manchin and Sinema are on record is like, we're not going to get rid of the filibuster. But that's fine. You turn the filibuster into something else, and you can say you kept the filibuster. But the talking filibuster thing, I think, or some variant of it. There are others who have like a variant, like the threshold starts to drop the longer that you talk. So you talk for a day and only 55 people have to vote to push a bill forward. You talk for 2 days and it drops down to 53. In 3 days, it's 50, that type of thing. But there needs to be some type of filibuster reform. And I think that, like, building the pressure from all different, all different directions is the way to go. And I'm, what gets passed in it is going to be another issue, but I think we're going to see this filibuster reform at one point. And I think we're going to see it in the next 6 to 8 months.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that Stacey Abrams is lending her voice to this is key, not just because she was respected before the Georgia runoffs, but she has this added clout after the infrastructure that she set up, given her gubernatorial run paid off with such immense dividends for the Democratic Party, and she has a lot of authority on voting rights and how to protect our democracy, and then also, most importantly for the Democratic Party, how to win. So when she lends her voice to this and she goes on the Sunday talk shows, that's very strategic, and that's done with a specific purpose. And so the fact that last weekend Manchin was on Axios saying that he thinks the filibuster should be painful and things should change in that area, and then you have Stacey Abrams the following weekend, there is something a brewing, as nobody says that, as I say, and
Coffee baristas do.
yeah, I'm sure that's as soon as they walk into work every day. There's something a brewing, and it's some Joe Biden. And to bring it back, and I think cinema might be a bigger obstacle than Manchin at this point.
We'll see.
Something's a brewing in this Joe Manchin.
Yep.
Yikes.
Meanwhile, so and I say 6 to 8 months, I think, is like the outside. I mean, I think we're going to see the filibuster reform, sometime. It could be a month from now. It could be, but we shall see. We have Joe Biden talking about raising taxes on wealthy people. Janet Yellen came out today, I think it was, or yesterday, saying that she thinks that we should, and we don't have any ability to sort of pass a law about this, but to create an international minimum corporate tax that would be sort of akin to the Paris Accords, which doesn't obligate anybody, but it basically says, hey, we're all agreeing to sort of jump into the pool at the same time, essentially. And if we do it all at the same time, we're not going to impact the race to the bottom to attract businesses. We're all going to stay at the same baseline. We're just going to raise that baseline in terms of corporate taxation. That way, you address, before you pass a raise in the corporate tax in this country, you address the talking point, and to the extent that it's a reality, I mean, it happens. People, corporations set up, they fudge around with their corporate headquarters, and they place it abroad as a way of escaping taxes. If you deal with that, then it becomes easier to raise corporate taxes here. And again, we haven't seen anything like that since '93. The Bush tax cuts expired in 2011. Some of them were allowed to expire, but we haven't seen a full-on raise in these taxes since Bill Clinton.
1993, they said.
That is probably something we're going to see through reconciliation. And the raising of those taxes is going to allow more expenditures on the other side. And so because of the Byrd rules, which, again, the law, Byrd rule is not like the filibuster. I want to make this clear. The Byrd rule, they call it a rule, but it's actually in the budget resolution law. It is statutory. The filibuster is not statutory. That is just a law. That is just basically that's just the rules of the Senate. The Byrd rule is a law, but they call it a rule.
And let's just be clear, this kind of proposal to raise taxes on corporations, which, well, Janet Yellen was touching more on that, but some of what Biden's proposing is raising taxes on capital gains if you have over $1 million in net worth, and or maybe not net worth, or you make over $1 million a year, and then also raising taxes on individuals who make over $400,000 a year. And these would all be an effort to do, under the Byrd rule, pay for the expenditures that are being negotiated in reconciliation.